will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good evening. This is Ashish Dhyani and welcome back to InfosecTrain. Today is our third day of our webinar of Cybersecurity Essentials, and today we will be learning about basics of security. Right now, what is the agenda of today's webinar? We will be discussing about what is security and its factors. Right, then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on the types of hackers, what types of hackers are there, and then we will be learning about security policies. Right now, after security policies, we have physical security, that how physically you will secure your organization. Right, so we will be discussing about these topics. Right, okay. Now, what we have is, guys, we have the first thing, that is introduction to security. Now, what is security, guys? What is security? As you can see over here, it's written that security is the practice of protecting systems, networks, programs from digital attacks. Right? Now, we are protecting our systems, means our devices, our network, the network that we are connected to, and the programs. Programs means the software and the applications that we are using from digital attacks. Right? Now, basically, this type of security that we use, that type of security is known as your cyber security. Clear, everyone? So what is cyber security mainly? In cyber security, we protect our systems, networks, and programs from digital attacks. Now, what is information security, guys? There is one more terminology that says information security. So what is information security? You guys can put your answers in the chat, right? So what is information security, guys? Okay, securing personal data. Right. Now, in information security also, we are securing your personal data. But what is the difference between cyber security and information security? So if you can see in the definition, it's written from digital attacks. This is the keyword, guys. You are protecting your systems, networks, programs from the digital attacks. Right now, if I talk about other types of attacks, those are not done digitally. What if I'm just talking to you and I'm convincing you to share your confidential details, your personal data with me? That is also an attack. Those types of attacks are known as social engineering attacks. Right now, I am not performing that attack digitally. So what that is your information security. Right, and your digital attacks are also under your information security. So I can say information security, if I talk about, so information security is your universal set. Right, all the things are secured under information security. So those of you guys who are working in these things, so you guys are working in information security, you are taking care of everything, right? Like physical security, all you are also providing. So that is what, that is information security. Now cyber security is what? If I talk about cyber security, so cyber security is a part of information security. So you can say it is a subset of information security. Clear, everyone? So this is the difference between information security and cyber security. Now, next thing that we have is attacks are usually aimed at accessing, changing, or destroying sensitive information. Now, what we do, we secure our data. From whom? We secure our data from the attackers, right? Now, I have secured my data from the attackers. Now, what is the agenda for the attackers? What are they aiming for? Right? Either they want to access your data, either they want to change your data so that it will be harmful for your organization, or they will be destroying the data if they are not able to change the data, right? So that is the aim for the attackers, and our aim is to secure everything and not let the attackers do these types of things. Clear, everyone? Now this is your security, right? Now what next thing that we have is we have security factors, right? Now if I want to achieve security goals, if I want to provide better security, I have to rely on these four security factors, right? Now what are these four security factors? The first one is authorization, right? Now if I talk about authorization, so in authorization what we have, it is the process of determining what rights and privileges a person has or a device has, right? So if you guys are working in the organization, you don't have all the passwords, you cannot go inside the server room, and you cannot access the server directly, right? So those are what they have given you some rights and privileges, that if you are a developer, you can only use the web server, right? If you are a network administrator, so then you can use the server, the main server, right? Which is giving all the controls to everyone, right? Now, that is your authorization. To make you an authorized person so that no unauthorized access happens, right? Now, next thing that we have is access control. Now, what is access control, guys? Now, if I talk about access control, so what you are getting in authorization, you are determining that what rights and privileges a device has and where you are assigning those privileges. So in access control, what we do, we assign those rights and privileges to various resources. So assigning privileges is done in access control. Now, how we do that? We use access control lists, ACLs. So we write the ACL list, we create the code for that, and then what we do, we provide the privileges that what a person can do, what are his privileges, what devices, what things he can use, where he can connect to, right? What resources he can use, what objects he can use, what data he can use, what data he can transfer, what data he cannot transfer, right? Which websites he can access, which websites he cannot access. So all of this is done in your access control. Now, even after these access controls and authorization, your any incident happens, right? So what is incident? Any mishappening. right? What I mean by incident over here is any mishappening happens, like someone attacked your server, right? Someone attacked your website. Now, what is accountability? Accountability means you are determining who to hold responsible for a particular activity, right? So, if any particular incident happens, let's say you are not accessing, this is your PC, you are not accessing, you are a developer, right? You are a developer, and you have the rights to access this web server, right? So this is your web server. Now you have the rights to do that, guys. What accountability is, let's say there is a attacker in between. So this is the PC of the attacker. So he hacked into your device. Now after that, what he will do, he knows that your PC has all the privileges, you can use the web server. So what he will be doing, he will be, let's say there is username and password authentication is used, right? So now username and password authentication is there. You have to write the username, you have to enter the password, right? Now you have to write the username, you have to enter the password. So what will be happening, guys? Attacker does not knows what usernames and passwords are. So he will be trying entering usernames and passwords, right? Now he is trying username and password. So let's say he tried 123 and 123. Right? It does not work. So he tried infosec and infosec. It didn't work, right? So every time you enter a password, a log is created. What is created, guys? A log for that you have someone logged in and someone logged out, or even even what thing is there, even your logs are for security as well, your logs are for system as well, right? So when you enter wrong password, even that log is also created, right? Now if that log is created, that log will be sent to a person who is monitoring the whole network. Now that person is monitoring the whole network. So what he found, that this particular developer has entered password wrong twice, right? So he will ask the developer that why is that. So in accountability, that particular person who is monitoring the network, he will call accountable the developer, right? So the accountability is of the developer, because from his device this particular logon attempts are happening, right? So this is your accountability. So who to hold responsible for a particular activity or an event, like your logon, right? So that is your accountability. Now next thing is auditing. We also call auditing as accounting. Now what is accounting, guys? Accounting or auditing? Anyone? Now what happens? Someone, as I said, is monitoring your network, right? Now that someone who is monitoring your network, what he is doing? He's tracking and recording the system activities. So the process of tracking and recording the system activities is called what? Accounting, right? Right? So this is what? This is your accounting. Clear everyone? Now, any questions? Any doubts? Okay, great. Now, next thing that we have is security principles. Now, we provided authorization, we provided access controls, then security principles are. Why these are there? Because the factors that we discussed about, guys, these factors are closely tied to the principles, right? And these principles were first three only. So sometimes they are also known as CIA triad, right? Clear everyone? Okay. Now what is confidentiality, what is integrity, and what is availability? Anyone? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Any data leaked or not, right? Confidentiality, data is secure. Okay, nobody knows about you login. Okay. Okay. So what happens is confidentiality. So this is the principle. Yes, correct, Ms. Preeti. So confidentiality is what? This is a principle that keeps your information and communications private, right? It protects it from unauthorized access, right? Only the authorized person will be able to access that data, right? Now, what confidential information do you have? Like we have your trade secrets, right? We have trade secrets. You have personal records, right? Now, after personal records, we have health records. So, all of this information should be secure and should not be used, should not be read by anyone else, right? So, this is what, this is your confidentiality. Now, if I ask you guys how you maintain confidentiality, how the confidentiality is maintained. If I want, then no one else can read my data other than me. No one can access my data other than me. How I will ensure that? Correct, Mr. Gopal. By encrypting the data, right? So for confidentiality, what we use for confidentiality, I use encryption. Now, what is encryption, guys? What do you understand by the word encryption? Anyone? Encryption, guys. Use multiple keys to secure. Okay. Now let's say I want to send a message to my friend, and in that message I have written secure. Right. Now if this data is flowing in plain text, right? I have written security. Security is flowing in the network like this only in the plain text. There will be an attacker and he will be able to get that and read that. Right? Now, if I encrypt this data, so it will be changed to something like this. Right? Now, if this data is flowing in the network, and even if the attacker gets that data, will he be able to read this what it is written? No, he will not be able to read that. Right? So this is what, this is your encryption. So I can say that encryption is what? Encryption is changing your data into something gibberish. Right? What I'm changing it into something gibberish, so that others cannot understand, others cannot read it. Right? So this is what, this is your encryption. Now after encryption, attacker will not be able to understand. Right? So that is what, this is now our data is secure. Clear? Now what can happen? Correct, Mr. Yakali. What can happen? Let's say I have this data, right? I have this encrypted data, so I will write ESC. This is the data that is encrypted. Now, what happens, guys? What if there is an attacker sitting, he got this data. Now he is unable to read this data, he is unable to understand this data, but what he can do? He can change this data, right? He can remove this data and he can change this data. So what if instead of this written data, he changed it to something else? Let's say he changed it to url.com, right? He entered some malicious URL in that data. So what will happen? The receiver will think that I have sent this data. So the receiver will click on that data and he will be getting caught in the trap, right? So that is what, that is your integrity is not being maintained, right? The attacker is able to change the things inside your data, inside your message, right? Now if he is able to do that, so integrity is not maintained. So what is integrity, guys? Integrity means keeping organizational information accurate, free of errors and without any modification, right? So it should be without any modification, right? So what we perform to maintain the integrity? Is there anything that we can do to maintain the integrity? Anyone? Hash it, correct? use keys. Okay, hashing. So what happens, guys? Hashing is used. Now, what is hashing? In hashing, what happens? Your data is changed into some code, and that code never changes, right? So, if I want to show you guys, what we have is, if I want to create hash of something. So the hash of this data, let's say I'm writing hello, and I want to encrypt it, right? So this is now encrypted, right? As you can say, this is your encrypted in hashed format. So this is called your hash. Now only the person can do what, can check the integrity of the data from this. How he can check? So let me tell you. Let's say I have written hello, right? Hello. Now the hash for hello is, let's say it's 5A B7 DD77 BX2C, right? Now this is the hash of the data. So what I will do, when I will send the data, when I will send the hello, so I'll send it like this, right? So hello will be here, right? Now will hello be same like that, or it will be in encrypted form? Will hello be traveling in the plain text, or will it be in encrypted form? Yes. So it will be in the encrypted form, right? Now, what it is traveling like, this is how your hello is traveling. Now I have calculated the hash for hello. So hash is what? 5A7DD77CBX2C. Right? Now this is the hash. Right? Now what will happen? First thing, when this hello, this whole data will reach to the receiver. So receiver will do what? He will first encrypt this. He will first decrypt that data. The encrypted data will be decrypted. Now this encrypted data is decrypted. So what he will get? He will get hello from it. Now he got hello, right? Using the keys, we know that confidentiality is maintained. So using the keys, he did what? He decrypted that data. Now in decryption, he got this information. After that, what he will do? He will find out this hash. Now he got this hash. What he will do? He will again find hash for this thing, right? Now he will calculate hash for this particular data. So what he will do? He will again go to the website and he will again write hello, right? So if I am the receiver, I will do what? I will go to here. I will write hello and I will press enter, right? So what I'll get? I'll get the same hash again, right? So as if you will compare, hash remains same if the data is same. So it is always same, right? So what he will do, your receiver has found that. Now if the hashes match, the hash the receiver calculated, right? So receiver has calculated a hash for it, and the hash that your sender has sent. So sender has sent which hash? This hash, right? So these two things are there. Clear everyone? Now if these two things are there, he will compare both of the hashes. The one he calculated, the one that is sent by the sender. Right? Now he has compared both of these hashes and these hashes matched. If both of these hashes matched, then what will happen? Then it means the data is not changed in between during the transit. The data is not changed. It is accurate, right? So this is how your data is sent without modification. And if there is modification, if that data is tempered, we can find that out, right? So this is your integrity and how integrity is maintained, right? Any doubts, any queries? Okay. Now I'm not removing everything. Okay. Now what happens? Next thing, we have availability. Now what is availability, guys? Anyone? Anyone from the team? Availability. To receive the data, okay. Get access when you need is available. Okay. Critical data leaked or not, and the application is available to the user or not. Availability of the data when needed. Correct. Data need available to user when required. Okay. Great. So what we have availability, correct everyone. Data should be available at the time we need it, right? So it is like ensuring that your systems operate continuously. So if you have, let's say, a web server in your organization, so anytime if I enter, let's say we are taking the example of Amazon, right? Right? We have Amazon.com. Now in Amazon.com, what happens, guys? Let's say there is a web server that is hosting the website. We all visit Amazon.com. So it is hosted on a web server, right? Now this is the web server. Now in this web server, what is happening? This web server should be available every time, right? And it should be available to authorized persons only, right? So what happens? Let's say someone attacked this web server. So what will happen? This web server will not be available, right? Now is attacked. Your availability is attacked. Now, if I write, if I ask how you can attack the availability, is there any attack that we can do on availability? DOS attack. Now, if I talk about DOS attack, so those who know about DOS attack, it's good. Those who don't know, let me tell you guys what is DOS attack. In DOS attack, what happens? DOS stands for denial of service. Right? Now, your denial of service attack does what? your denial of service attack is when you are sending large packets of data. Now, let's say if you are sending a packet of data that is of 65,000 bytes and you send 100 such packets. So how much total data it is? A lot, right? A lot of total data. So you have to add two more zeros in front of 65,000, right? So 65 lakh bytes of data you have sent. Now this much data if you have sent, the server will be doing what? Server will be using its resources to process the data, right? Now what it has done, server has deployed not only this, let's say I have sent these much of packets more, right? So server will do what? Server will deploy all of its resources in processing that data, because this is the work of server. They have to process the request, right? Now what happens, your server has deployed all of its resources. Now if I am as a user, I as a user visits amazon.com again, so that server, uh, all of the resources of that server are busy, right? Now if all of the resources of that server are busy, that server will deny my request, that I don't have any resources left, so I'm busy in some other work, so I cannot reply your request, right? So that is what, that is your DOS attack, right? Clear everyone? Any doubts? Okay, great. Mr. Sheetal, coming back to your question again. What we have for confidentiality encryption, right? Let me write that again. And integrity hash. Now, what happens, guys? We discussed about the DOS attack. Now, Mr. Sheetal is asking about DDoS, right? Now, DOS stands for denial of service. DDoS stands for distributed denial of service. Now what happens in that? So we have large web servers, right? So we discussed about a web server. So this is a web server of Amazon again, right? Now what happens in this web server, guys? Let's say you are sending the data, right? Now I have this PC and I'm sending what? I'm sending large chunks of data. So the data will take time to reach, right? Even this PC will take time, correct, to create that data. Now I am attacking the web server. I want to bring that web server down, right? I want to attack the availabilities so that this web server will not be available. So I am sending the data. But tell me, guys, will only one device be able to bring this particular web server down quickly, right? Will that be happening? No. Why? because one PC is sending the chunks one by one, and it will take a lot of time to eat all the resources of this web server, right? So what I will do, I will use lots of PCs, right? And when I have multiple sources to send the data, right? So the work will be done quickly because every PC is sending data. Now we have a lot of data, so that will be bringing down the web server quickly, right? So now this is your distributed denial of service, right? So correct, Mr. Diego. We use what? We use bots. So bots, we will be discussing about bots. That what are bots? Bots are what? Bots are like robots that are commanded and controlled by someone else, right? So we are commanding and controlling all of these PCs. They are working on uh, my commands. So what they will do, they will just start sending all the traffic towards your web server. Clear, everyone? Any doubts, any queries? Okay. Now this is a DDoS. That's how you can attack the availability, right? Now next we have is DRDoS. So DRDoS is what? DRDoS is distributed reflected denial of service, right? Now what happens in that? Let's say you are the attacker. This is your PC. So this is A for attacker, right? Next we have this PC, then again second piece, right? So what we have over here is we have this particular PC as victim 1 and this as victim 2, right? Now I have a target. I want to attack a web server or any server. Let's say this is a server, right? So this is what, this is my primary target. Now I want to attack this primary target. What I will do, guys, I will not directly attack this because there are chances that I will be traced back. So that your target will check its logs, and in that those logs there can be an entry of mine as well. And what can happen? The organization which I'm attacking, they can do what? They can trace me back, right? Now what I'll do, I'll attack this victim 1. Now I got the access of this PC victim 1. Now from victim 1, what I'll do, I will attack victim 2. Right? Now I have attacked victim 2. Now from this victim second's device, I will be attacking the server now. Now the server is attacked. I have successfully completed my attack. So what will happen, guys? If even if the organization, the server whom that server belongs to, that organization tries to check the logs as well, and even if it tries to trace back the path, right? So that path will be traced back to the victim too. So what this organization will think, that our server was attacked by victim 2, but what I got all the data, right? I copied whole data what I wanted, right? So this is what distributed reflected denial of service. Clear, everyone? Any doubts, any queries? Okay. Now, next thing that we have is maintaining the availability, right? We discussed about how attacks happened on availability. Now, how you maintain the availability. So, for maintaining availability, we have backups, right? So, if you have a web server that is attacked, you have another web server that is having the backup of that. So, those are called what? Backup servers, right? Now, what else you can do? Now, you have these two servers, right? This is first server, this is second server. Now, first server is attacked. So, who will redirect the data from flowing through to this to here? There is someone over sitting over here, and that thing is called load balancer, and the process is called load balancing, right? So what it will do, load balancer will redirect all the traffic that is coming towards one, it will redirect all that traffic towards two, right? So what it is, this is load balancer. That's how you maintain the availability. Clear everyone? Oh, next thing. We have non-repudiation rights. Non-repudiation. Now, what is non-repudiation? And before non-repudiation, what is repudiation rights? Because, okay. Anyone else who wants to unable to deny an action? Anyone else who wants to add something to this definition? Recursion and unable to deny an action. There are two things only. Repeated data, no changes made. Okay. So no changes are made. That is what I am doing in integrity, Mr. Mark. That our data should not be changed. Rejection of action. Okay. Correct. So rejection of action, rejection of data, that is also correct. Repudiation is what? Let's say you are here, you wrote an email or you wrote an email to your manager, right? That what is happening? So that I have some urgent work on 30th of September, so I will not be available and I need a leave for that, right? So your manager approved that leave. Now your work completed early, right? And what you did, you got you went to office again in the next morning. What your manager will say? He will say that you were on leave, but the thing is, you were on leave and you are denying it. No, I'm not. And what your manager will say that you can see email over here, right? Now, if your manager says you can see the email over here, so what you will say? You will say that it is not mine. Now, what will happen? Right? So you are denying. You will say that it can happen. My email ID was hacked, so that's why it's happening. Someone else is have written that data and this email. I have not sent this data or this email. So you are denying the fact. So repudiation is this thing. You are denying the fact that you have not done something. But non-repudiation ensures what? Non-repudiation ensures that the data will remain associated with the party that creates it or sends it through transmission media, and it will be getting attached with that data, associated with that data, right? Now, what happens? How you ensure that? So the thing we discussed about hashing, we'll come back to it again. And in here, what we have, I told you guys that if I'm sending hello with hello, I'm sending what? I'm sending hash as well, right? Now this is the hash. This is maintaining the integrity. Now what happens, guys? There are two keys, right? There are two types of keys of every device, public and private. Now, if I have a public key, guys, so that public key is shared. Yes, Mr. Rajat, I am doing that all, right? So, what happens? Your public key is shared over the network, your private key is always with you, right? So, you never share your public key with anyone else. Your private key is always with you.
will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good evening. This is Ashish Dhyani and welcome back to InfosecTrain. Today is our third day of our webinar of Cybersecurity Essentials, and today we will be learning about basics of security. Right now, what is the agenda of today's webinar? We will be discussing about what is security and its factors. Right, then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on the types of hackers, what types of hackers are there, and then we will be learning about security terminologies, and
Will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good evening. This is Ashish Dhyani and welcome back to InfosecTrain. Today is our third day of our webinar of Cybersecurity Essentials, and today we will be learning about basics of security. Right now, what is the agenda of today's webinar? We will be discussing about what is security and its factors. Right, then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on the types of hackers, what types of hackers are there, and then we will be learning about security terminologies, and then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on to understand the basic security terminologies, the terminologies that are used in the security. Then we will be moving on to this is Ashish Dhyani and welcome back to InfosecTrain. Today so the things you do, like let's say we have keylogger, right? So what keylogger does? It logs all the keystrokes that you press. Right now, something you do means that you are doing what you are. It measures how hard you press the keys while typing and how long the keys remain pressed. So that is a pattern by which you type, right? So that is your typing pattern, right? Now, if this is your typing pattern, let's say you press the keys for 2 seconds, right? And you do not press the keys hard. Now, one fine day, what happened? In keylogger, there are things log that you press the every key for 3 seconds and you press them hardly. So this will also be flagged by the person who is monitoring all these things. So this will be flagged, right? So this is what this is your something you do, right? Now every time, yes, picture password, correct? Yes, Mr. Diego, your pattern recognition is happening over here, right? So what we use different types of authentication techniques. We have two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentication means out of these 5 factors, we are using any 2 factors. Now, if I talk about two-factor authentication, we have ATMs and ATMs we do cash withdrawal, right? Now, when you do cash withdrawal, what happens, guys? While doing the cash withdrawal, you swipe the card, then you enter the PIN. So something you know and something you have are being used over there. So that's why two-factor authentication. Minimum two factors are used. Then we have multi-factor authentication. In multi-factor authentication, what happens? Let's say you are swiping a card, then your facial recognition is done, and then you are entering a PIN. So that is multi-factor authentication. Your two-factor authentication is also inside your multi-factor authentication because multi-factor means more than one factor you are using. So even if you are using two-factor authentication, that is also your multi-factor authentication. Clear, everyone? Any doubts? Any queries? Okay. Now, how authentication is maintained? If you are the authenticated person, let's say you access YouTube, right? Everyone will be aware of YouTube. Everyone use YouTube. Now, how you are making sure that YouTube is a website that is authenticated, it is a valid, a real, legit website. How will you find that out? So you will find that out using digital certificates. Correct. Digital certs. Right? Now what are digital certificates? Correct. Certification authority is there. Great. Great. What else? So we have digital certificates. Now, if I talk about digital certificates, and if I take you to the website, infosectrain.com. Now you will click on connection secure, more information, view certificate. Now, if you will see for InfosecTrain, this is your digital certificate, and the issuer name is GoDaddy. So a GoDaddy is what GoDaddy is a certification authority that is doing what? It is certifying that this website is legit. It will not harm you and it will not take your personal data. Right? So this is what this is your digital certificate. Clear everyone? Any doubts? Okay, great. So Mr. Rajat Shukla, we use multi-factor authentication in IAM, identity and access management, where you will be monitoring all the logs, and in organizations we implement those multi-factor authentications, right? Now we have VPN as well. So if I talk about VPN, in VPN you have multi-factor authentication as well, right? When you connect to a VPN of your organization, if you are, let's say, working from home, so working from home means you have to connect to your VPN if you want to connect to your company's network, right? Now, if you want to connect to your company's network, VPN will be used and it will be asking for password as well, username as well, and it will be asking for a key fob as well, right? So there will be a badge you will be having. So through that badge you will be entering that particular network, right? So these are the examples of authentications and digital certificates and multi-factor authentication, right? Any other questions, guys? Okay. So how we get the digital certificates, guys? Now, if I talk about digital certificates, so what we have is we have these things. So this is the user who wants to validate itself. So what will be happening? This user will be reaching to registration authority. Now, this user will be taking his public key and private key. So public of user and private of user and all the information. Taking all the information, it will be reaching to the registration authority. Now registration authority will do what? Registration authority will check if this person is legit or not, whether he is impersonating as someone else or not. Now after you are authorized, right, validated, Now, registration authority will contact to the certification authority that I have checked all the things of this particular user and this user is legit. Now, if this user is legit, guys, so what will be happening? Please provide a certificate to him. Now, certification authority will do what? Certification authority will share a certificate with the user, but in encrypted form, so that no one else in between can check what is there and what not. Right? Now, next thing that will happen is certification authority will contact validation authority as well that I have given a certificate to user and this user is now certified, he is authenticated, so please update this thing in your system, in your database. So validation authority will do what? It will store that particular information, right? Now if any new user arrives, let's say user 2, it arrives and it will do what? This user 2 will be contacting validation authority that I want to connect with this user 1, if he is the valid person, legit person or not. If he is authorized, authenticated, if I will be able to communicate with him or not, right? Now validation authority will check its database and will reply back that yes, it is a valid user, a legit user. You can access, you can communicate with this particular user, right? So this is how you get your certificate. Clear, everyone? Okay, great. Next thing, moving on to the basic security terminology. Now, if I talk about vulnerability, what is vulnerability, guys? Anyone? Vulnerabilities. What is a vulnerability? No one? Now, vulnerability is what? Guys, it is a flaw or weakness in a system. Right? So if there is a flaw or if there is a weakness in your system, now we call it a vulnerability because attacker can do what? Attacker can take disadvantage of that vulnerability. Now, what happens? Why vulnerability in your system is there? It can be due to configuration problems. So, misconfig of hardware can be there. Misconfiguration of software can be there. Bugs in software also lead to vulnerability. Right? So bugs in software, there can be vulnerability. You have not configured your router correctly, you are using weak network, passwords, even then what will happen? Even then there is a vulnerability. Because if you are using your password like your date of birth, so it is a guessable password and your account will be attacked, right? So that is what these are the things behind vulnerability, why vulnerability is there, right? Next thing that we have is exploit. Now what is exploit, guys? Anyone? Exploit. Which can be targeted. Okay. In advantage. Correct, Mr. Diego. Misuse. Okay. So exploit is what? When you found a vulnerability, you took advantage of that. Right? So taking the advantage of the vulnerability is called exploit. Simple as that. You are exploiting the vulnerability. You are using that vulnerability to get inside the system, right? Now, next thing that we have is attack, right? Attack is what? Attack is the technique. So what technique you will use to exploit the vulnerability? So attack is the technique that is used to exploit the vulnerability. Right? Like we discussed about DOS attack, denial of service. So that is the type of attack. Right? We have man in the middle attack. So that is what? That is your type of attack. That is used if your data is flowing in plain text. That is a vulnerability, right? So if your data is flowing in the plain text, it will be a vulnerability. And how to exploit that? We will use different type of attack. We will use sniffing, man in the middle attack to exploit that vulnerability. So this is the meaning of attack. Yes, Mr. Diego, there are different types of attacks. Cross-site scripting, dictionary attack, brute force, hybrid attack, right? Server-side scripting, cross-site request forgery, these types of attacks, many attacks are, right? So these are the techniques that we are using to exploit the vulnerability. Any doubts? Any doubts? Now, what we have is Mr. Nikhil, you ask that exploit equals to payload. So exploit is not equal to payload. Payload is something else, right? Now, what is payload? Anyone who can tell me what is payload? Exploited flaw. Someone has published how to repeat the steps to break into the software or payload equals to malware delivery. So payload is what, guys? If I write payload, so payload is anything that supports your exploit, right? Now anything that supports the exploit, that is payload. It can be a malware that you are sending towards your victim. So that is what, that is a payload. Clear? Actual data which does exploitation. Great. Now next thing is asset. What does asset, guys? Anyone? Asset. Resources, equipment or software which adds some value. Correct. Anything that holds some value for you or the organization, right? So what we have, asset is something that holds some value. Now, what things hold value for you? Let's say your data, your confidential data that is in your mobile phone or in your laptop, that data is asset for you, right? So asset is what? Anything that is valuable for. Now there are two types of assets, guys. So if I talk about assets, so what types of assets do I have? I have two types of assets. First is tangible and second one is intangible. Now, what are tangible and what are intangible? Now, if I talk about tangible assets, anything you can touch. So anything you can see and touch, that is your tangible. Not see, even if you can touch it, yeah, that is tangible. Now like your mobile phone, your laptop, right? Anything else, right? Anything that is valuable for you, even if there is a a gift from someone, that is also a tangible asset. It holds some value for you, right? So it has intellectual values for you, right? So that is in your tangible. Now, if I talk about intangible, so intangible assets are what which you cannot touch, right? Now, in intangible, what will be there? Mostly there will be the data only, right? So that your data, let's say, someone is running with your mobile phone and your laptop, right? And you can save only one thing. Which one you will save? If someone is running with your mobile phone and laptop, and you can save either your laptop or your mobile phone, what you will you save? Everyone, will you guys save mobile or will you guys save laptop? Now, it depends on every person. Now, some are saying laptop, some are saying mobile. So some peoples have their data, their confidential data in their mobile phones. So that's why they are saying mobile phones. Some have their data in laptop. And some are saying laptop because laptop is costlier than mobile, right? So some are saying laptop in that manner as well. So it depends how, in what in what things, in what places, and in what things you have your asset. You can see your values in what types of things. So in what things you are saying is seeing your value. So that is what, that is your asset, right? Now, next thing that we have is risk. So what is risk, guys? Anyone? Probability that a threat will be realized, it can be security risk. Okay. So risk is what? Probability of happening something, right? Now, if I talk about risk, right? So the probability of happening something. If, let's say, I'm holding a glass of water over my laptop, so that water can spill and it cannot, right? So it may spill, it may not, right? So that is a risk. There is a risk. It may spill, but it may not as well, right? So that is what, that is a risk, right? Now, next thing that we have is threat. So what is threat, guys? If we talk about threat, so what is threat? Anyone? Threat? What is threat? Correct, Mr. Sain. Threat is which can alter the value of asset. Right? Now, if I am doing what? If I am holding that, let's take the example again. If I am holding the glass of water over my laptop and that water spilled, right? My laptop stopped functioning. So what happened? The value of my asset, which is laptop for me, is altered. It is changed, right? As it is not functioning now. So the value is changed. So that is your threat. Water is threat for my laptop, right? Clear, everyone? Okay. Now next thing that we have is bot. So bot is what? That is commanded and controlled by someone else. Now the thing that is commanded and controlled by someone else. Let's say I have a robot that is commanded and controlled by someone else, right? Now what I did, I attacked some PCs. I have entered, I have installed a Trojan in the PCs, right? So all those PCs, whatever I will say, those PCs, whatever instruction I will send to those PCs will be doing what? They will be following those instructions. So those are commanded and controlled by me, right? So that is what that is about, right? Now, what is botnet? So network of bots is called botnet. When all the devices are, let's say I have 50 devices and I did what? I attacked all those 50 devices and now I am giving the instructions to those 50 devices that what to do and what not to do. So that is what? That is your botnet, network of bots, right? That all those are commanded and controlled by me. So that is network of bots. Now next thing that we have is wiper or clean. So what is wiper or cleaner? Anyone? Wiper or cleaner? Correct, Mr. Dave. Wiper or cleaner means it deletes all your data. It cleans up the system, it deletes the data. So that is what that is wiper. is your wiper or cleaner, anything that deletes your data. So when attacker will be attacking your system and he will be inside your system, then what will be happening? For not getting caught, he will do what? He will clear all the logs, right? Now all the logs will be cleared. He will use a wiper or a cleaner to clean all the data that is there in the system so that he will not be caught, right? So that is your wiper or okay. Mr. Affan says if you are controlling only a single bot, so that can also be called botnet. If you are controlling a single bot, that is only a bot, right? A network of them is called botnet. If you are commanding and controlling a single device, that is called bot, and a network of lot of devices, that is called botnet. Okay, great. So everyone clear with this bit? Okay. Now next thing that we have is your types of hackers. That what types of hackers do we have? So as you can see, first we have the term hacker. What is hacker, guys? What do you understand by the term hacker? Anyone? Now back in the old days, guys, what used to happen, there were two terms, hackers and attackers. Right? Now what are hackers and what are attackers? That means hackers were someone who has sound knowledge of computer networks and system administration. So in 1960s, 1970s, those people who have a sound knowledge of computer networks and system administrations, those peoples were called hackers. This was a neutral word, right? Neutral word it was, and those peoples were called hackers, right? Attackers were the peoples who were stealing the data, who were using the unauthorized access, getting inside different systems and copying the data, deleting the data, right? So those peoples were called attackers, right? Now what we have? We have black hat hackers. So black hat hackers are your unethical hackers, right? So unethical hackers means they have what? Those hackers are what doing what? Those hackers are hacking for their own good, for the sake of money, for taking revenge. So those peoples are called black hat hackers. Now if I talk about white hat hackers, so what are white hat hackers? White hat hackers are your ethical peoples, ethical hackers, right? Now what they do, they hack for They hack for the sake of the organization to find the vulnerability and patch those vulnerabilities. So what they do, they work in the organization, they do the penetration testing, and then what they do, they create a report what vulnerabilities they found, so that your defender peoples, your blue team will find mitigations for it and mitigate those vulnerabilities. So those are what? Those are your white hat hackers. Now what about gray hat hackers? Anyone? Can be good. Okay. Initially ethical hackers, but then molded to black hat. Okay. So what your gray hat hackers are, I would say they are called your opportunistic people. Now what are opportunistic peoples? Those are opportunistic peoples. That means they are the ethical hackers, but what they do, if they find any opportunity that is for their own gain and that will help them in getting money or anything, so any work like that, a black hat work, they will not hesitate to do that work as well. So those are called your opportunistic peoples, and those types of hackers are called your gray hat hackers. Right? Mr. Sheetal, ethical hacker means who hack with ethics, who hack with ethics, who do not harm anyone, who do not copy the data of anyone, who do not steal the information. They are just your pen testers. So these are what? These are your white hat hackers. Clear? Yes, your gray hat hackers intent is not malicious, but if they find any opportunity, they go for it. They give it a call, right? Now next we have a script kiddies. So script kiddies are what? Script kiddies are your curious minds, right? Now they do not know about any tool or about any software and about hacking, that how hacking is done. They are just your pen testers. They are just the peoples who do what? Who copy the code from the Google or who watch the tutorials on YouTube or any videos, and what they will do, they will just deploy that code. They do not know what that code is doing, what behind that code is happening. They just do what? They just hack using that particular thing. right? Using someone else's code, they are hacked. So those are your script kiddies. Yes, Mr. Diogo, these are newbies. Now, suicidal hackers. What are suicidal hackers? Suicidal hackers means those peoples who know what will be the outcome of the hack if they will get caught, right? They will be behind bars. But what happens, they still give it a call and they still do hack, right? So those are suicidal hackers that do not hesitate from the outcomes of getting caught or from the outcomes of getting caught or from the outcomes of a hack. If they will be traced back, or if they will be caught, what will happen? So they do not hesitate doing that task as well, right? So those are your suicidal hackers. Next we have a cyber terrorist. Now cyber terrorists are what? Any time when there is human life at stake. So when human life is at stake, those attacks are done by cyber terrorists. So those cyber terrorists, if I give you the example, so there was an attack of Stuxnet, if you guys know. So this attack, if you will read about this attack, so this attack was done on a nuclear power plant. Now, if this attack wasn't successful, but if it would be successful, then a lots of lives will be gone, right? So that's why when human life is at stake, so that is done by your cyber terrorists. Those peoples are called cyber terrorists. Now, next thing that we have is hacktivists, right? So what are hacktivists? Anyone? Hacktivists are the people who are activists who hack. So these peoples do hack for a political agenda, right? Now they do hack for political agenda. So if they have an agenda, they do that. Now there was a ISIS attack in Paris, right? So what your activists did, they released the pictures of those attackers. They released the identity of those attackers by hacking. So hacktivists are what? They help also, they stand with the truth and they do it for political agenda. So we have a group of activists which is known as anonymous, right? Those anonymous peoples, they hack for it. So in this Paris attack, anonymous was the group released who released the identity of those particular hackers, right? Those terrorists. So they did the thing, right? Oh. Now, next thing we will learn about the security policies. Now, what are security policies? See, policies are there for the security so that security is maintained in the organization. Now, what type of security policies we have? AUP, first thing, acceptable use policy. So, what acceptable use policy is, it will define you the acceptable use of organizations physical and intellectual resources, that what resources you can use. Right? So if you are using any resource like coffee machine you are using, that is accepted. But if you are a non-IT person, non-technical person, and you are trying to access the server, that is not accepted. So in acceptable use policy, it is written for you, for your job role, what things are accepted, what things you can use, and what things you cannot. Right? Then next we have is extranet. So for extranet policy, we have to understand what is extranet. Now, if we talk about extranet, guys, extranet is extension of intranet. So if anyone from outside is visiting your organization, let's say there are visitors or there are vendors or there are some dealers that are visiting your organization. So for them to connect to your network, you have extranet policies, that how third party entities who are desiring to access organization network, what requirements will be there for them, right? So next we have is password policy. Now what is password policy? Password policy will give you the standards for creating password complexity, so that your password should be minimum of 8 characters. Your special characters should be used. One uppercase character, numbers will also be used, right? So these things will be written in your password policy. Right? Next type of policy is that your wireless standard policy. Now, in wireless standard policy, it tells what wireless devices can connect to your organization's network, and if there are some devices connected to the organization's network, then what we have to do, what will be the requirements for that, right? And how to use them in a safe manner that will protect the organization's security, right? Next thing we have is changing default credentials. Now changing default credentials mean, guys, that what we have is, let's say you joined organization, right? You newly joined your organization, and that company did what, they gave you a email, right? So let's say you joined any organization, so they are giving you a Gmail account, right? Now while they are giving you the Gmail account, the credentials will be default, right? So let's say you are joining InfosecTrain, so the credentials will be InfosecTrain 123, right? Your username and the password will be InfosecTrain 123. So this is a very easy password to guess, right? So you have to change the credentials, default credentials, when you will get that account, right? So directly you have to change those things, right? So this policy tells you about that. Now BYOD stands for bring your own device. Now bring your own device means when you have your own devices, your personal devices. So under what circumstances your personal devices like your mobile phones, tablets and laptops may be connected to the organization's network, and how you can maintain the security of your organization, right? Yes, Mr. Mark, BYOD saves the company's money, so they do not have to give separate laptops or separate devices to the employees, but a headache for it to support, right? So that is your BYOD. Now, non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure agreement is what? This is a legal document between two parties, you and the organization, right? That there are restrictions on sharing any confidential information with the outside parties. So you cannot share the information about your organization with the third person or any third party or any outside party. So that is what? That is your non-disclosure agreement. If found that you have shared some secrets of organization with others, then they can take action on you, right? So legal action can be taken, right? Okay. Now, next thing that we have is physical security. Now, what is physical security, guys? Now, physical security means we are ensuring that your network is physically secure from threats and disasters. Your organization is safe from physical attacks, right? Like someone is entering inside your organization, someone is without any permission. So an unauthorized person, so that is physical security. That's why we have to provide physical security, right? Okay. Yes, Mr. Marvin, it's not a safe practice. Now, in physical security, what we have, guys, we have detection devices. Now, what detection devices we have? Motion detectors. Now, motion detectors will detect the heat, right? So, if heat will be changing in front of them, then what will happen? They will alert the administrator. Clear? What else? They also have, they also work on not only heat but microwaves, right? So if the microwaves will be changing up and down, or even then they will alert the administrator that someone is there in front of your server, right? Next we have is video surveillance. So in video surveillance we have CCTV cameras, right? So to find out who is following, who is in the video, in front of the server room. So if I have a server room, guys, so I will put a CCTV camera over there and a person, a security guard that is taking care of, that is watching that CCTV again and again, so that if any person arrives over there in front of server room and tries to get inside, so he will be caught. Right. Now next we have asset tracking tags. So asset tracking tags have radio frequency identification, like when you do purchase of clothes, right? So in clothes we have some types of tags that needs to be removed when you have purchased them, right? So that is what, that is RFID. Even when you are traveling in a metro, those metro cards are your RFID cards, and RFID readers are used to read those cards. Right? Now, tamper detection devices. If I talk about tamper detection devices, so detection devices are fitted into a panel to find out if the device has been opened or not. Right? If you have a mobile phone, so your if your mobile phone is opened and it is in warranty period, if you are uh, making opening it without the knowing of your service center, right? So if you are not giving it to the service center and someone else, your warranty will be finished, right? Only at that time. So that are tamper detection devices. So tampering, if we have some other things, like we have some box, and like we got a parcel from Amazon, and if we use something, so tamper detection devices will help them to find out if they have used, if this is used or not, right? So those are your tamper detection devices. Correct, Mr. Mark. IoT devices looks like all the detection devices. Now, next in physical security, we have protection devices. Now, if something is happening, we can detect that, but how to protect all those things? So what I will provide, I will provide badges. Now, badges, like you have different badges, secure or security cards, you can say, you used to swipe through an identification system and you get inside the office. So that are what? That are your badges. Now, locks. So there are different types of locks. We have hardware locks in our homes as well. That is also used to provide the physical security. Then you have biometric door locks as well. So those are also put deployed in front in doors of your server room as well. So you can, only the person who has biometrics saved in there will be able to get inside. Now we have smart cards. So what are smart cards? Those are like your regular ID cards, and they have integrated circuits. So if you will, they contain data that can be read by only your scanners, like your RFID scanners, right? We have metro cards. So those metro cards are your smart cards. They have data. Now if it will be read by the RFID scanner, your gate will be open. So those are your smart cards. So that are your smart cards. Next thing we have key fobs. So key fobs are what? Key fobs are your small devices which can be used for activating things like you have keyless entry systems on motor vehicles. So you have key fobs, you will uh, show the key fob and the door will be open, right? So for authentication we also use key fob. So that key fob is used to authenticate yourself that you are a person, you are that person, you are claiming to be, right? Now biometric devices. In biometric devices we have fingerprint devices, fingerprint readers. We have retina scanners. We have facial recognition, right? So this is what this is. These are your biometric devices. Yes, Mr. Beapu, punching devices are your keyboards, right? Clear, everyone? Okay, great. Now, guys, this was all for today, and we discussed about these things. Now, tomorrow we will be discussing about more things regarding security, what we have, right? So we will be discussing about authentications more. We will be discussing about access protocols, right? And access controls, what we controls we provide. Now, if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat. Mr. Sheetal, IDS and IPS. IDS stands for Intrusion Detection System and IPS stands for Intrusion Prevention System. So these are used when firewalls were not able to detect the attacks, right? So these are used. So intrusion detection system is only detecting a type of pattern. So we have a database inside these IDS and IPS, and if the pattern of the packet that is arriving inside my network matches with that of the database, it will detect that and alarm the user. Now if we are using IPS, so IPS will directly prevent those things, prevent those packets. It will drop those packets if they are, if their pattern is matching with those patterns that are saved inside my database, right? So that is IDS and IPS. Correct, Mr. Mark. The more the world is connected, the more insecure it gets. Correct. Now, if you guys have any questions, you can put that in the chat. And our Telegram channel, for more updates, you can join our Telegram channel, right? And the second one, we have YouTube channel. So if you missed the first part of first sessions or this session as well, you can go to the YouTube and watch those lectures again. Now LinkedIn, you can search for InfosecTrain over LinkedIn as well. Miss Purvi, tomorrow the link will be the same, right? Only on this link we will be joining. Mr. Marvin, IPv4, IPv6. IPv4 we discussed about on day one, right? So on day one we discussed about IPv4 addressing. So you can watch that lecture again, right? Okay, Mr. Affan Ansari, which link? The YouTube link you're talking about? Okay, the link of this meeting. Okay, just give me a second. Doing that. I have pasted the link in the chat, guys, for this meeting, right? Okay. So let's wrap it up, guys. So thank you everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll meet tomorrow the same time. And we'll be discussing about more concepts and security. So thank you so much, everyone.